Come on in. Join us. Have Lisa Earl McLeod and myself, and we're talking about Coaching Fest. Hey, Lisa. Nice to see you.
Good to see you, Mitchell.
You know, we have such an amazing lineup of incredible humans talking about what we've dubbed as the word coaching fast. So this is first of a handful of, we're going to do 3 series. This particular one is really about who you are, how you show up, how you keep your plate full. And Lisa is such an expert at selling, but selling nobly. and you know, we as coaches there's a couple things that we don't do. So if you read Marshall Goldsmith's recent book, The Earned Life, the one thing that he says about credibility that's super powerful is you need to earn credibility twice. Once when you actually do the work to become credible, and the second time when you tell the right people about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what Lisa's all about, is how do you actually close business? How do you make sure your plate is full? And Lisa, you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to cover and in the event? And what I'll also do is I'll also put up the somewhere during your talk, I'll put up the list of other people, and you could talk about some of the other people that are showing up for the event as well.
Well, Mitchell, when you first reached out to me about this Coaching Fest, I had 2 sides of my brain. One was, is this for people to help understand the coaching profession? Because I think a lot of people, their only experience with coaching is sports coaches. But the other piece was, and you clarified, this is for coaches to be more successful. And one of the things that I think there's an intersection of those 2 things, because I think one of the things that holds a lot of coaches back is this notion of how do you explain what coaching is, explain the value of coaching, and then specifically your own credibility. And so it's interesting when you talk to coaches, and by coaches, I'm going to give a broad swath here. If you're an executive coach, if you are a mindset coach, if you are a meditation coach, if you are someone that is trying to get people to, if you're inside a company, buy into the idea of coaching, or if you're outside a company, buy into the idea of coaching and pay you to do it. The challenge when you talk to folks like that is they're so excited about what they do and how they make a difference and the importance of their work. But then when you say, well, how do you sell it? It is like you sucked all the oxygen out of the room, because they view it as almost distasteful, as if somehow it should sell itself. And the reality is nothing sells itself. You've got to have the right conversation to show people why this matters and why you have the ability to deliver it. The challenge is, in that conversation, we don't want to come across as pushy, phony, aggressive, or anything like that, because that's what turns us off about selling. And the research tells us that the people who do sell that way, pushy, overly assertive, trying to close all the time, actually are much less successful than the people who, as you said, as I say, have noble intent and are more invitational.
Love that. Let me throw some of the other folks here, because we have such an amazing lineup. Now, do you want to? I'll fill in the blank. When you want to talk about a couple of the peers that are showing up at Coaching Fest?
So we know you and I are connected through Marshall Goldsmith, who is, many people know him as the world's #1 executive coach. Many people who are not in the coaching community are like, he's a guy who wrote some book, but he is the master. And he connected us as part of his 100 coaches, which is now more than 100 people. It's a couple hundred people, but it's some of the best coaches in the world.
By the way, math may not have been a component of the 100 coaches organization.
Well, I think it was in the beginning, and then it became, it's still a couple hundred. So that's where I go to. And so we are part of that community. And you see a lot of other people here some who are in that community, like Frank Wagner, who has done stakeholder coaching, like Doug Winnie, who I know pretty well. And the thing that the commonality, the thing, if other coaches who maybe are working on aspiring to that level are listening to this, the thing that was candidly very validating for me when I became part of that community, I was nervous because you look at these people on this list here, and I'm going to be candid. Most of them have more education than me. Yeah. And I thought, gosh, these are some of the best coaches in the world, which is true. And then when I got into the community, I realized these people who have such credibility, like look at Brenda, look at Kimberly, that have such credibility, they still are challenged by those client conversations where you have to talk about the money and what the value is and how to get your CEO to sign off on it. And so what that tells me is if you're a coach and you're just getting started and you think one day I'll get comfortable with this, the fact that you're not comfortable selling yourself and that you're not comfortable with the money conversation isn't reflected of your inherent worth as a coach, because some of the best coaches in the world, that's still their least favorite part of the job.
That's so you really queued up into what I'm going to say next, which I didn't know I was going to say to you. You said what you said, so thank you. The thing that one of the things that for those who sign up, you immediately get is a 10-minute video where it will help you be able to articulate who you are and how you show up in seconds. I call it a CPOP, your customer point of possibilities. It's 10 words or less. And the one that I'm using and focusing on is it starts with the word coaches. So it's coaches who've created a job, not a business. And Lisa, you exactly said what that meant. And so what happens when somebody says they're CPOP, it's tell me more. Well, what happens as a coach, and this is true across the gamut of almost every coach I've met, they're really good at transformation. They're really good at bringing a corporation or an individual from A to B. But what they really are not so good at, I often say they kind of suck at, the selling part, which is your expertise. And that is, for some odd reason, sales is a 4-letter word. Why do we think sales is a 4-letter word?
Because we've allowed it to be defined by the people doing it badly. So if you think sales is icky, I want to share some solid research. This is 10 years of research. And I want you to take this in. The sales people who are overly pushy, who are very self-focused, who have that, we all know what that energy is. Those people are average to low performers. They are not the best salespeople. The research tells us, this is across multiple organizations, the salespeople who have a noble purpose, whose true intent is to make life better for their client, are the top performing salespeople from a pure numbers basis. So this idea that in order to do this thing, I have to be a certain way is not grounded in the research at all. And so this aversion that we have for sales, this disdain for the people doing it that way, our customers don't like that any better than we do. So you don't have to be that. What you do have to have, to use your language, is clarity about how I improve life for customers. And here's the thing with sales. Marketing is about showing how I improve life for customers and getting that message out. Sales is about an individual conversation where I find out with great specificity whether that would be helpful to you. And so I hope people are taking that in. I can get my words all right. So my words for my company are, we help organizations drive revenue and emotional engagement. Those are our 2 lanes. I need to get that out there in a marketing message. I need to show examples of how we've done that. I need to show case studies. I need to write about that. That is marketing. When I am selling, when I am sitting there with that CEO, I'm not saying, let me tell you how I did this. Let me tell you how I did this. I'm saying, tell me where you are with regards to revenue. What are your challenges? How are you managing this? Tell me about emotional engagement. Are your salespeople phoning it in? Are they showing up full hearted? So I have a conversation. I'm clear on my value, but in sales, it's not me shoving it down your throat. It's me having a conversation with you in my lane of expertise. And most coaches are really good at that.
I know it's very interesting, this disconnect between what a coach is really good at.
Yeah.
At least I went to CB Bowman, one of the other 100 coaches. I went to her event, and what was really fascinating, there was like 40 executive coaches in a room, and what would happen, an executive coach, one of the peers would ask me a question, and then they would listen to the response. And all of a sudden I realized, wait, they're not interrupting me. They're not butting me. They're listening. They're giving feedback. It's something that as a coach, you're really good at. And then there's this one sort of transition area it's meeting the broader set of people. And then, it's the, how do you bring it over the line? How do you sell without selling? And you just mentioned it. It's that emotional trigger.
It is. And the thing is, the sell without selling, I understand what you mean by that. And a lot of people say, thank God I don't have to be that pushy. What I would say is, how do you sell from a place of noble purpose? Because this idea that sales is a dirty word, let's reset that. Okay. We all know there's plenty of bad doctors out there, there's plenty of bad teachers, and we don't allow them to define those professions because that we know every profession. I'm sure there's bad engineers. They don't define the profession because they are the ones performing poorly for a number of reasons. And so again, back to this clarity in the sales profession, the people who are the most annoying are actually performing poorly. Like, let's get this super clear. The LinkedIn just did a big study about deep sellers versus shallow sellers, and shallow sellers don't hit their number. Translate that to coaching. Shallow coaches are the ones that go, I help people with this. I help people with this. I help people with this. I'm so great. I'm so great. Well, they might be saying that in your LinkedIn feed all day long, but the chances are they're not closing that much business. And so I always say, as a coach, any kind of thought leader, there's only two elements to this business: your brand and your behavior in the buyer's office. And the buyer's the person who's going to pay you. Okay. The better you are at one, the least good you have to be at the other. Marshall Goldsmith, people call, he's got a waiting list. I get some of his spillover business because people say, oh, I can't pay Marshall and he's not available. Who else you got? So, because his brand is there. It takes a decade to grow a brand, but your behavior with that buyer, and I use the word buyer in a really respectful way. It might be the person you're going to coach. It's probably their boss who's going to pay for it. And the way you manage that relationship, you don't have to have a book. You don't have to have a big name. You simply need to hone in that conversation, just like you would the first coaching conversation, with what prompted you to even consider coaching? What's the win for you? Where do you want to go with this? What do you hope to accomplish? What's the impact of accomplishing that? What's the risk for you if you don't? That is an emotionally engaging conversation, and it is also a high value sales conversation, and it's authentic.
I love that. So take a look at the folks on this list, the caliber of the content, and the caliber of the individuals, and more importantly, I guess the caliber of the conversations. It ranges from Lisa or McLeod, that when we speak, you're going to get so many ideas of how best you actually show up in the room. And when you're there, those that see you, they know they have to buy from you, and that's not a bad thing. And and you take a look at Magdalena Mook, who talks about overall the coaching industry because she's the CEO of ICF.
Yes.
Yeah, and amazing, amazing ability and perspective of what she has and what she does. Both with Marshall and Barbara, we talked about, well, how can you just do what you love to do, and then you get to show up the way Lisa's talking about, and you just be you. This, I don't know if you knew Brenda, which is really cool. I think this was announced. She was announced as the #1 branding person on the planet by Global Gurus.
Which is
And yeah.
Well, and you think about this. So I've spoken very passionately about my lane. Every one of these people has a lane, and you think about the branding. I said behavior in the buyer's office, that's my lane. Branding, that's Brenda's lane. And as a coach, one of the things that you and I have talked about, Mitchell, is it can be lonely if you're a solopreneur. I was at a company's big annual meeting, and I had the moment that I sometimes have. Oftentimes, I'll go to their annual meetings and I'll just see all the pressure they're under and all the things they have to do and the dysfunction. I'll go, thank heavens, I don't work for a company. But about half the time, and this happened a couple of weeks ago, I see the camaraderie and I see the sense of connection and I see how excited they are. And I have that little moment where I go, it really is great to be part of a team. And they all came, they had this 3 days of learning together. They're all talking about it. And I think one of the things with pulling together as you have this coaching fest is if you are a coach, this is a place that you can go to get that dose of I'm part of something bigger than myself, and also some really practical skills. Because like when you're in a company, I used to work for Procter and Gamble, and every year I got trained on different things, some my choosing, some their choosing. I developed myself and I never forgot it. And so as a coach, like you want to be developing yourself. And so there's so many things here that'll give you, as you said, Magdalena, a lay of the land of your industry, which you should know. Brenda's going to talk to you about branding and there's a whole host of other things. And so I think as coaches, it's your motivation, your success depends on you continuing to develop yourself.
I Thank you. That was so well done. And you know what? You said you knew Doug Winnie really well. One of the things he mentioned when we were talking is he's closed over $14 million of coaching revenue.
Yeah. Pay
Brandon,
attention when he talks.
oh, I know. And Brandon actually mentioned that he closed a deal which had 10,000 employees as part of it. All needing coaching. I'm like, oh man, this is Brandon Margard, the CEO of Stakeholder Centered Coaching. Each one of these individuals. Now, you may not know Mayan Gordon. She's not a 100 coach. She has 2.3 million followers on TikTok.
Oh, so,
and it's just fascinating when you allow somebody to sit in their area of expertise and be able to share in a way that adds value to your profession.
Well, and I want to connect some dots here for folks. Okay. So millions of followers on TikTok, closed a deal that's going to help 10,000 people get more coaching. It's really easy for us as coaches to go, oh, I'm not on TikTok. I should do that. And it's really easy to go, 10,000 people never do anything like that. But I want you to take in two things. One, they were wherever you are at some point, so you can get there. But the other thing as a profession to take in, if millions of people are watching her on TikTok and she is helping them improve their lives, it's making a difference. If Doug is closing millions of dollars of coaching revenue, yeah, that's great. And I want to be in that space. But the thing that I want people to take in is how many people are going to be better off as a result of that? How much of the coaching that you've gotten as a professional then translates to your clients, translates to your kids, translates to your friends because you're like a better human. And so as you think about this, what I encourage coaches to do is run these parallel lanes. When you hear people talk about millions of followers and coaching 10,000 people and and closing millions of dollars, that is possible for you. If they did it, you can do it too, or you can do your version of whatever success is. And at the same time, the other lane is the more you hit those numbers, you are having a bigger impact. You are helping more people show up for work more excited, be better leaders, be better humans in the world, serve their customers better, be better parents. And so those two lanes are not in conflict, they are in parallel.
How noble of you.
Let's not overuse that word.
I know, but it's so true. What's interesting is if you live who you are and show up that way and you brand yourself that way, people understand you and remember you that way. If they do that, they want to recommend you to their peers. They want to recommend you to others. They want to hire you because you consistently show up that way. And you absolutely do that.
Thank you.
All right, we got to wrap up. Lisa, anything else we should say before we call it a day?
It's been such a pleasure to be with you. And, so I'm going to share a personal thing. Last night, I went to the Madonna concert in Atlanta, so hence the bags under my eyes.
Yeehaw.
But I got to watch her journey for 40 years. She sang her early songs. They showed videos. You really saw her story over the course of 40 years. And one of the things that I felt myself, my connection to this moment is I'm just so grateful that we live in the time that we live in. I know a lot of stuff's going wrong. You don't need to go down that path. But the fact that we can be having a conversation about coaching, and it's a thing now, that people are actually leaning into their own development on their own emotions, their skills, and the way they relate to each other, it's a better place to be than it was 40 years ago.
Well, thank you again for joining me today and for joining me at CoachingFest. Lisa is amazing, as well as her peers. So in the chat, you'll see a link to join CoachingFest. It's a free summit, so feel free not just to sign up right now, but feel free to share it with your friends who you know really will get valuable information, valuable content, valuable feeling of who they are and how they show up from Lisa Earl McLeod and the others who are part of the event. Lisa, thank you so much once again.
Good to be with you. See ya.
Take care, everyone. Bye.